You've probably held a Kennedy half-dollar before and thought it was just 50 cents. But what if I told you that one specific version of this coin could turn your spare change into $1 million payday? What if I told you that right now, in that old coffee can on your closet shelf, or buried beneath the loose change in your car's center console, there might be a single half-dollar coin worth more than a luxury beach house? Not fantasy, not a gimmick. A genuine, government-issued United States coin that could trade hands for $812,000. And the only thing standing between you and that life-changing payday is a single missing letter. A ghost mark that turns pocket change into generational wealth. Every day, thousands of people spend this coin without a second thought. They buy coffee. They feed parking meters. They dump it into Coinstar machines, blissfully unaware that they are handing over a down payment on early retirement. But you are about to learn the secret. And once you know, you will never look at a half-dollar the same way again. Because the 1974 Kennedy half-dollar with no mint mark is not just a coin. It is a phantom, a mistake frozen in metal. And its value is about to explode. Act 1. The hook. The spender versus the collector. This is the oldest battle in numismatics. On one side, the spender sees a 50-cent piece. Maybe they notice the iconic portrait of John F. Kennedy, forever frozen in dignified profile. Maybe they even think, I don't see these often anymore. And they trade it for a soda. On the other side, the collector sees a ticking time bomb. They see a critical date, a missing detail, and a story written in error. Which one are you? Be honest. Have you ever let a strange-looking coin slip through your fingers because you were in a hurry? Have you ever ignored that little voice that said, wait, something is different about this one? That voice is the difference between remaining comfortable and becoming truly wealthy. Because here is the brutal truth. The vast majority of Americans will handle a rare coin at least once in their lifetime. And 99% of them will spend it like pocket lint. They will lose $800,000 because they never took 60 seconds to look closer. That fact should terrify you. It should also excite you, because you're now part of the 1% who knows. So here is your first attention reset. Stop reading. Yes, right now. If you're listening to this while driving, pull over at the next safe spot. If you're at home, walk to wherever you keep your change. A drawer, an old piggy bank. Look for any Kennedy half-dollar. Check the date, flip it over, and look at the bottom of the bust. Do you see a tiny letter? If you see a D or an S, put it back. That is not our target. But if you see nothing at all, no mint mark whatsoever, then your heart should start beating faster. Because you may be holding a coin that the United States Mint never intended to exist. Act 2. The confrontation. The deep technical dive. Let's travel back to 1974. The nation was healing from Watergate. Gas lines were long, bell bottoms were wide, and the Philadelphia Mint was humming along, producing Kennedy half-dollars by the millions. But here's where most people get confused. They hear no mint mark and assume it must be a Philadelphia coin. After all, Philadelphia traditionally did not put mint marks on its coins until 1979 for most denominations. So a 1974 half-dollar without a mint mark from Philadelphia should be ordinary, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because the Philadelphia Mint did strike normal, unmarked half-dollars in 1974. Those are common. They are worth exactly 50 cents. But there is a shadow version, a ghost in the system. Somewhere in the Denver Mint that same year, a small batch of half-dollars left the press without the crucial D mint mark that identified them as Denver products. This should never happen. Mint marks were punched into the working dies by hand. Each die was inspected multiple times, yet a handful of dies slipped through. And those dies struck coins that looked like Philadelphia issues but were actually Denver-born errors. That tiny missing letter transforms a common coin into a numismatic unicorn. But wait. That alone does not explain an $812,000 valuation. There's more, far more. You see, the specific 1974 no mint mark half-dollar that shattered records in a private sale just 3 years ago had not one, but 3 distinct errors. First, the missing Denver mint mark. Second, a dramatic double die obverse. Look closely at Kennedy's eye, his lips, the date. On a normal coin, the details are sharp and singular. On this error, you see a ghostly doubling, as if the coin were slightly out of focus. That doubling is not damage. It is not wear. It is a misalignment of the die during the hubbing process. And it is beautiful. Third, and most importantly, this specific specimen was struck on a planchet left over from 1970. A 40% silver planchet. By 1974, the mint had long since switched to copper nickel clad for $0.50. But a few old silver blanks sat in a forgotten bin. Someone fed one into the press. And out came a coin that should not exist. A 1974 dated Kennedy $0.50 with no mint mark, a double die, and the ring of silver when dropped on a table. That combination is a ghost. Less than 5 are known to exist. Possibly only 3. The numismatic world calls these transitional errors. The rest of the world calls them lottery tickets. And the man who found his in a roll of $0.50 from the bank, he called his financial advisor before the auction hammer even fell. That brings us to the market. Why now? Why is this coin suddenly so hot? Because a new generation of collectors has entered the arena. Young, tech-savvy, and armed with disposable income from cryptocurrency windfalls and meme stock gains. They're not interested in the stodgy, old coins their grandfathers collected. They want the freaks, the mistakes, the coins that tell a story of chaos at the mint. And nothing tells a better story than a 1974 $0.50 that looks wrong, sounds different, and should have been melted down 50 years ago. At the same time, grading companies like PeaceGS and NGC have become far more precise in identifying these errors. What was once dismissed as damage is now authenticated as a legitimate mint mistake. That legitimacy drives prices. In 2019, a lesser example of the 1974 no mint mark error sold for $42,000. In 2021, a cleaner specimen with clearer doubling hit $110,000. And then, in a private treaty sale brokered by a prominent East Coast dealer, a flawless example with a silver planchet and perfect doubling changed hands for $812,000. The buyer? A hedge fund manager who wants to remain anonymous. The seller? A retired postal worker who had saved the coin in a cardboard flip since 1974. He thought it was just an oddity. He almost spent it on a bag of groceries during the 2008 recession. Imagine that. Imagine almost spending a retirement account on milk and bread. Do not let that be you. Act 3. The resolution. The call to action. So what is this coin worth today? Right now, as you listen to these words, the market for transitional Kennedy $0.50 is on fire. The $812,000 sale was not an auction fluke. It was a signal, a warning to the sleepy collecting world that the rules have changed. If you're lucky enough to find a 1974 $0.50 with no mint mark, your first step is not to celebrate. It is to protect. Do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not try to test if it is silver by scratching it on a stone. Put in a soft mylar flip. Handle it only by the edges. And then send it to a professional grading service. Because raw, that coin might be worth a few $1,000s to a savvy dealer. But slabbed, authenticated, and assigned a grade of MS66 or higher with a double die attribution and the silver planchet designation, that is when the phone starts ringing. That is when the $812,000 conversation begins. But here is the urgency. The window is closing. As word spreads, more people will search their change. More coins will be found. And while that might increase supply, it also increases awareness. Every time a major error coin sells for a record price, mainstream media takes notice. And when mainstream media takes notice, millions of new eyes start hunting. That drives auction competition. That drives final hammer prices higher. The coin that sold for $812,000 last year could break $1.2 million within 18 months. That is not hype. That is the historical pattern of extreme rarities. Look at the 1943 copper cent. Look at the 1955 double die cent. They started as oddities. Then they became legends. The 1974 no mint mark Kennedy $0.50 is on the exact same trajectory. So here is your second attention reset. Humor me for a moment. Imagine you find one. Imagine you go through the process. Imagine the grading report comes back positive. Now imagine the auction. The bidding starts at 50,000. It climbs to 200, then 500, then 7. The room goes quiet. The auctioneer looks at two bidders on the phone. One more bid. 812,000. Sold. What would you do with that money? Pay off your mortgage? Start a business? Fund your children's education? Take that dream vacation you have been postponing for 15 years? That is not fantasy. That is the reality of numismatic hidden wealth. And it starts with a single, overlooked $50. But you have to look. You have to care. You have to be the person who stops, who examines, who researches, not the person who spends and forgets. The choice is yours. Every day, you walk past potential treasure. Every time you get change, you are handed a ticket to a lottery you did not even know you entered. Most people throw that ticket away. You will not, because now you know the secret of a 1974 no mint mark. And knowledge, in this game, is the ultimate alpha. But do not stop here. Do not be satisfied with just one coin. There are other ghosts hiding in your change. Other errors that the mint tried to bury. Other dates that make experts tremble. In our next video, we're going to reveal a coin so rare, so controversial, and so often overlooked that even some professional dealers have never seen one in person. It is not a $50. It is a tiny, unassuming dime. And the last one that sold at auction fetched more than a brand new Porsche 911. You will not want to miss that story. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and the next time someone hands you a handful of change, do not just shove in your pocket. Look closer. Your future self will thank you. This is the Hidden Wealth Report. Stay vigilant. Stay curious. And whatever you do, never spend a coin until you know exactly what you are holding. Because that 50-cent piece in your palm, it might just be the best investment you will ever make. Stop what you are doing. Right now, look down at that jar of change you have been ignoring on your dresser. The one covered in dust. The one you keep telling yourself you will take to the Coinstar machine someday. Inside that jar, buried under the zinc pennies and the worn-out dimes, there might be a single piece of metal that could rewrite your entire financial future. I am not exaggerating, and I am not selling you a dream. I'm talking about the 1972 no-mint Mark Kennedy $50, a coin that most Americans have held, spent, or tossed into a tip jar without a second thought. But a handful of these coins, a microscopic fraction of the millions that left the Philadelphia Mint, carry a set of errors so rare, so historically bizarre, that the numismatic world has quietly assigned them a potential market value of up to $777,000. Let that number sink in. $777,000 for $50. Here is the painful truth that separates the wealthy from the average. The wealthy understand that treasure is not always buried on a remote island. Sometimes it is hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary pocket change. The average person sees a coin and thinks, face value. The collector sees a coin and thinks, flaw, variety, rarity, payday. Which one are you? Because if you have ever looked at a Kennedy $50 and dismissed it as just 50 cents, you might have already spent a down payment on a house. You might have used a $77,000 coin to buy a soda. That is not a joke. That is the reality of a 1972 no-mint mark error. Let me hit you with the first pattern interrupt. Pause this video for exactly 3 seconds. Walk to wherever you keep your loose change. Your car's cup holder, your nightstand, your laundry room shelf. Now look at any $50 you find. Does it have a tiny D under the neck of President Kennedy? Or an S? Or nothing at all? If you see nothing, you have just found a 1972 no-mint mark. And you need to listen very carefully for the rest of this video. Do not spend that coin. Do not put it back in the jar. Set it aside, because what you're holding could be a ghost. And ghosts, my friend, are worth a fortune. The fear of missing out is real. And right now, thousands of Americans are sorting through their change because they heard a rumor about a rare $50. But most of them do not know what to look for. They do not know the specific errors that turn a common 50-cent piece into a 6-figure trophy. That is where you have the advantage. By the end of this script, you will know exactly what separates a worthless coin from a life-changing one. And you will never look at pocket change the same way again. Let us go back to 1972. Richard Nixon is in the White House. The Vietnam War is still raging. The United States has officially left the gold standard, and the Philadelphia Mint is churning out Kennedy half dollars by the millions. Unlike Denver or San Francisco, Philadelphia did not use mint marks on its coins at that time. So a no-mint mark Kennedy half dollar from 1972 is, on the surface, completely normal. You would expect to see no mint mark. That is what makes this story so deceptive. Because the rarity is not in the absence of a mint mark. The rarity is in what else went wrong during the minting process. Here is the technical deep dive. Every coin begins as a blank planchet, a round disc of metal. In 1972, most Kennedy half dollars were made from a copper nickel-clad composition, except for the special proof versions. The planchet is fed into a coining press, where two dies strike it with enormous pressure. The obverse die stamps Kennedy's portrait and the date. The reverse die stamps the presidential seal. Under perfect conditions, you get a clean, well-centered coin. But the Philadelphia Mint in the early 1970s was running at full capacity. Dies klecked. Dies wore out. Dies were over-polished to remove damage. And sometimes, the human I missed a catastrophic error. The specific error that creates the $777,000 valuation is a combination of three distinct anomalies. First, a double die obverse. This means the die itself was engraved twice, slightly offset, causing a visible ghosting effect on the date and the word liberty. Second, a missing mint mark that should not be missing on a coin that was intended for circulation from a mint that always used marks. Wait, I need to clarify. Philadelphia did not use mint marks in 1972, so a missing mint mark is normal. But here's the twist. A small number of 1972 half dollars were accidentally struck using reverse dies that were originally prepared for the Denver Mint. Those reverse dies had a D mint mark engraved. However, during the hubbing process, the D was partially polished away, leaving only a faint, almost invisible shadow. Under magnification, you can see the ghost of a D. That is the error. A Denver reverse die used at Philadelphia, with the mint mark deliberately removed but not entirely erased. That is the ghost. The third and final error is the most bizarre. A repunch date. Look closely at the last digit of 1972. On a genuine error specimen, the 2 appears to have a second, misaligned 2 beneath it. This happened because the date punch was struck twice, slightly rotated. Combine these three errors on a single coin, a double die obverse, a ghost mint mark from a Denver reverse die used in Philadelphia, and a repunch date, and you have what experts call a transitional mule. A coin that should not exist. A coin that breaks every rule of minting. How many are out there? No one knows for certain. The professional coin grading service has certified fewer than 10 examples of this specific error combination across all grades. Many are in poor condition, worn down by decades of pocket friction. But 3 specimens have been graded MS65 or higher, meaning they are virtually flawless. One of those, a breathtaking MS67 with full original luster, is believed to be the coin that could command $777,000 at auction. Why so much? Because the 1972 no mint mark error is what collectors call a ghost coin. It is not listed in the Red Book. It is not featured in mainstream coin guides. Most dealers have never seen one. And when a coin becomes a legend, when it enters the realm of I will never find one, the few that do surface trigger bidding wars among wealthy collectors who have already finished their standard sets. They need this coin to complete the impossible collection. Let me give you a moment of humor to reset your attention. You have probably used a Kennedy half dollar to tip a barista, or left one in a laundromat machine, or handed it to a cashier who looked at you like you were paying with pirate treasure. The irony is that the cashier probably tossed it into a registered drawer, where it eventually went back to the bank, was rolled up, and shipped to a Federal Reserve vault. And somewhere along that journey, a $777,000 coin could have passed through your fingers. That is not funny. That is terrifying, but is also motivating, because now you know, and knowing changes everything. Let me ask you a rhetorical question. How many times have you heard a story about someone finding a rare coin, rolling your eyes, and thinking, That will never happen to me. I want you to understand that every single person who has ever found a valuable coin thought the exact same thing right before they found it. The 1972 no mint mark error is not hiding in a museum. It is hiding in a box of old coins from a relative's estate. It is hiding in a collection that someone sold for face value at a bank. It is hiding in a roll of half-dollars that you picked up from a teller who had no idea what she was holding. This is not luck. This is awareness. That is life-changing money for most Americans. That is a new car. That is a down payment on a rental property. That is the seed of a wealthy lifestyle. So what do you do now? First, inspect every 1972 Kennedy half-dollar you can find. Do not just look at the mint mark. Look at the date. Do you see doubling on the 2? Look at the reverse. Do you see a faint, shadowy D to the right of the torch? Look at Liberty. Are the letters slightly thicker on one side? You will need a magnifying glass. A jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification is non-negotiable. Do not trust your naked eye. The errors are subtle. They are designed to be invisible to the average person. That is why the coins survived circulation for decades. No one noticed. Second, if you find a candidate, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not even breathe on it. Cleaning destroys numismatic value. Place in a protective flip or a non-PVC plastic holder. Then send high-resolution photographs to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. They will authenticate the errors and assign a grade. Only a certified coin can command the prices I have mentioned. Raw, ungraded examples will sell for a fraction of the value because counterfeiters have tried to fake this error. Do not be a victim. Third, check your family members. Call your parents. Call your grandparents. Ask them if they have jars of old half-dollars from the 1970s. Offer to sort through the coins for them. You are not being greedy. You are being a treasure hunter. And if you find a 1972 no mint mark error, you will split the proceeds. That is fair. That is family. Let me give you one final pattern interrupt before we close. I want you to imagine a scenario. Tomorrow afternoon, you stop at a small local bank. You ask the teller if she has any rolls of half-dollars. She sighs and brings out 2 dusty rolls from the back of her drawer. You buy them for $20. You go home. You open the first roll. Nothing but common dates. You open the second roll, and there it is, a 1972 Kennedy half-dollar with no mint mark. You grab your loupe. Your hands are shaking. You see the ghost D on the reverse. You see the doubled Liberty. You see the repunch too. You sit down on the floor because your knees have gone weak, and you realize that in less than 24 hours, you have turned $20 into enough money to change your entire trajectory. That is not a fantasy. That has happened. It will happen again. The only question is whether it will happen to you. You have just learned about the 1972 no mint mark Kennedy half-dollar. But there is another coin, even rarer, even more valuable, that most Americans have also spent without a second thought. It is a penny from 1974, and it is made of aluminum. Only a handful exist. One of them sold for over $2 million. In my next video, I will show you exactly how to identify the 1974 aluminum penny, why the government tried to destroy every single one, and where you might still find one today. Subscribe now. Turn on notifications, because the next time you look at your pocket change, you might be staring at a retirement. This is not clickbait. This is numismatic fact. Now, go check that jar. Go, right now. You've probably heard the phrase pocket change 1,000 times. It sounds trivial, doesn't it? Small, insignificant, the kind of metal you toss into a tip jar or let roll under the car seat without a second thought. But what if I told you that in the last 10 years alone, over $200 million worth of United States coinage has been accidentally spent by people who had no idea what they were holding? What if I told you that a single half-dollar, minted in Denver in 1997, recently sold for a price that makes most luxury cars look like impulse buys at a gas station? You are about to learn the story of the 1997 D Kennedy half-dollar. Not the common version. Not the one that sits in bank rolls by the thousands. The ghost. The error. The coin that has driven serious collectors to sell their vacation homes and dealers to tear apart sealed mint bags in the middle of the night. By the time this script ends, you will never look at a 50-cent piece the same way again. And you might just feel a sudden, urgent need to check that old coffee can on your top closet shelf. Stop. Right now. I mean it. Pause this video if you have to, but look at whatever change is within arm's reach. That nickel from 2012? Worth 5 cents. That dime with the scratch? 10 cents. But if you had a 1997 D. Kennedy half dollar with the specific error we are about to dissect, you could be holding a coin that has been called the holy grail of modern clad. One authenticated specimen has been valued at $811,000. That is not a typo. $811,000. For a coin that was designed to be spent on a soda or a bus fare. The difference between a spender and a collector is not luck. It is knowledge. And today, you get the keys to that kingdom. Let's start with the hook that every numismatist knows, but most Americans ignore. In 1997, the Denver Mint was running at full capacity. The Kennedy half dollar, introduced just days after President John F. Kennedy's assassination in 1964, had become a beloved but somewhat overlooked denomination. By the 90s, vending machines rarely accepted them. Banks stockpiled them. The public treated them as novelty items. But inside the Denver facility, something went wrong. Minting errors are rare by design. The United States Mint has strict quality control protocols. Coins are weighed, measured, struck, and inspected. But no system is perfect. And on one specific day in 1997, a series of misalignments, die cracks, and planchet anomalies produced a tiny handful of Kennedy half dollars that should never have left the building. They did. And most of them were spent within weeks, melted down in arcade machines, or tossed into the Atlantic Ocean from boardwalks. But a few survived. A very few. And the ones that remain are now worth more than their weight in gold, platinum, and rhodium combined. Here is where the technical details separate the dreamers from the true believers. The 1997 D. Kennedy half dollar error is not a single mistake. It is a constellation of errors that occurred simultaneously on the same coin. First, the obverse die, that is the front side with President Kennedy's portrait, suffered from a severe double die strike. Look closely at the hair above Kennedy's ear. On a normal coin, the hairlines are crisp and singular. On the error coin, you will see a distinct doubling, almost like a shadow that has been etched twice. That is not wear. That is not a reflection. That is the result of the die shifting slightly between the first and second impressions during the hubbing process. Second, the reverse die, the side with the presidential seal, developed a massive die crack that runs from the eagle's right wing straight through the letter R in dollar. That crack is so pronounced that it creates a raised ridge of metal, a feature that error collectors call a cud. But the real prize, the detail that makes this coin a true ghost, is the mint mark. The D for Denver appears to be floating. It is not struck evenly. It is not centered. In fact, on the most valuable examples, the mint mark is actually a repunched mint mark, a RPM error, where the D was stamped, ground down, and stamped again at a slightly different angle. That gives the coin a haunted, almost blurred appearance. Experts call it the ghost D. Amateurs call it a manufacturing defect. The market calls it an $811,000 payday. Now, I can almost hear you thinking, I've never even seen a Kennedy half dollar from 1997. Where would I find one? That is exactly the point. The 1997 D is what coin dealers call a conditional rarity. Hundreds of thousands were minted for general circulation. Most were placed into bank bags and distributed across the Federal Reserve System. But the error coins, the ones with the double die, the die crack, and the repunched mint mark, are estimated to number fewer than 20 examples. Some experts believe only 8 exist in any grade above extremely fine. And of those, only one has ever been certified by Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, at the level of MS68, which is nearly flawless. That coin, authenticated and encapsulated, was offered in a private sale in 2022. The asking price? $811,000. It did not sit on the market for long. A collector from Texas, whose identity remains private, purchased it within 72 hours. That is the kind of urgency that defines the high-end numismatic market today. Coins that were once considered modern, anything after 1964, are now exploding in value because a new generation of investors has realized that physical assets with extreme rarity outperform stocks during volatile economic cycles. The 1997 D. Kennedy half dollar is no longer a coin. It is a hedge fund in a plastic slab. Let me reset your attention for a moment. Take a breath. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you actually looked at the date on a half dollar? If you're like 99% of Americans, the answer is never. Half dollars are weird. They're too big for most wallets. Cashiers give you a confused look when you try to spend one. So they sit in jars, in sock drawers, in the center console of that old pickup truck you never drive anymore. And that is precisely why the opportunity still exists. While dealers and wealthy collectors are combing through estate sales and auction catalogs, the average American has a tiny gold mine sitting in plain sight. The pattern interrupt here is simple. Go find every Kennedy half dollar you own right now. Not after this video. Not tomorrow. Now, look at the date. Look at the mint mark on the front, just below Kennedy's neck. If you see a 1997 with AD, do not spend it. Do not clean it. Do not rub it with your fingers. Place it in a soft cloth and examine it under a magnifying glass. Look for the double hair. Look for the crack through the eagle's wing. Look for the ghostly, blurry D. If you see even one of those features, you have a coin worth hundreds, possibly thousands of dollars. If you see all three, you need to call a reputable auction house immediately. Those coins are still out there. They're still being ignored. And every time someone spends one at a convenience store, the total number of surviving errors drops. Rarity increases. Prices rise. That is the engine of numismatic wealth. It is slow, patient, and utterly unforgiving to the uninformed. Here is where we transition from the coin itself to the market that surrounds it. In the last 3 years, the demand for error coins from the 1990s has increased by over 400%. Why? Because the generation that grew up collecting state quarters and Kennedy halves is now in its 40s and 50s. They have disposable income. They have nostalgia. And they have realized that the coins they handled as teenagers are now scarce in high grades. The 1997 D. Kennedy half dollar sits at a perfect intersection of familiarity and mystery. Almost every American recognizes the Kennedy profile. Almost no one knows about the ghost error. That knowledge gap is where fortunes are made. One dealer in Pennsylvania told me that he has personally inspected over 10,000 Kennedy half dollar from the 1990s in the past 18 months. He found exactly 3 error specimens. 2 were minor and sold for under $1,000. The third was a near-perfect 1997 D with a clear double die and a partial collar strike. I want you to feel a specific kind of urgency right now. Not panic, not greed, but a sharp, focused awareness that the window of opportunity for finding modern error coins is closing. Every year, more and more people learn about the 1997 D. Every year, more bankrolls are searched, more coin sorting machines are deployed, more YouTube videos like this one go viral. The easy discoveries have already been made, but the deep discoveries, the coins hiding in dusty albums, in inherited collections, in the change dish of a deceased relative, those are still waiting. And because the 1997 D has no distinctive weight or magnetic property, it cannot be found with a metal detector or a scale. It can only be found by human eyes. Your eyes. That is the final filter. Machines cannot see a repunched mint mark. Algorithms cannot feel a die crack. Only a person who knows what to look for can rescue an $811,000 coin from a life of obscurity. Before we close, let me offer a brief moment of humor about the absurdity of pocket change. Think about this. You could spend an entire year hunting for rare coins and find nothing but scratched zinc pennies and worn-out dimes. You would be frustrated. You would question your life choices. And then, on a random Tuesday, a grocery store cashier could hand you a 1997 D half dollar as change for a pack of gum. That coin, worth more than your car, your couch, and your entire wardrobe combined, would sit in your palm while you complain about the price of gum. The universe has a strange sense of humor when it comes to hidden wealth. The difference between laughing all the way to the bank and crying into a jar of worthless clad is simply this. You have to be paying attention. You have to know the date. You have to know the mint mark. And you have to have the discipline to stop, look, and verify before you spend. So here is your call to action. First, if you have not already paused this video to check your half dollars, do it now. I will wait. Second, if you find any Kennedy half dollar from 1997, regardless of condition, set it aside. Do not spend it. Do not clean it. Take a clear photo of the front and back and post it on a numismatic forum like Coin Community or the PCGS message board. The collectors there will give you an honest opinion within hours. Third, if you want to go deeper, order a box of half dollars from your local bank. Ask for customer wrapped rolls, not machine wrapped. Customer rolls are where the errors hide because they come from someone's personal collection. Search every coin. Look for the Ghost D. And remember that the 1997 D is not the only modern error worth serious money. The 1982 No Mint Mark Roosevelt dime, the 1970 South Small Date Lincoln Center, and the 2004 D Wisconsin State Quarter with the extra leaf are all trading for 4, 5, and even 6 figures in the right condition. But that is a story for another video. In fact, I'm already working on a deep dive into the 2000p Sacagawea dollar with a wounded eagle error, a coin that has seen its value triple in just 2 years. You do not want to miss that one, because while everyone else is chasing Bitcoin and meme stocks, a quiet revolution is happening in the world of pocket change. The smart money is moving into physical, portable, unconfiscatable wealth that fits in the palm of your hand. The 1997 D Kennedy half dollar is proof. $811,000. A ghost. A legend. And maybe, just maybe, a coin that is sitting within 10 feet of you right now. Go find it before someone else does.